Okay, folks, here's Muxter again.
Part 2.
No, this isn't part 2. This is a separate one. We're doing Penn Five, infamous Penn Five, which is another place we lived for a while when we first came back from Connecticut. This is where my mother grew up, Toby's great-grandmother. The house that's coming up on the right over here, it's the house that my mother grew up in. She grew up here, we lived here for a while. Now they fixed it up, and one of my cousins owns it now. And when we lived there, we had hot and cold running water, but no indoor toilets. There was a outhouse out back, but it was a fancy one.
So then where did you go to the bathroom?
It was a two-seater. It was in the outhouse. It was like one of those job Johnnies that they put out at picnics and stuff. But it had an automatic flush because it was built right over a little creek. And up here, there used to be an old coal chute here where they would load up the trains. And here at this turnaround right here, where you can't even tell anymore, but there's a little house here. There's a guy.
The camera's about to die.
No, I don't think so. Everybody just called him Dirty Mike, but I forget. His last name was something Russian. Do you remember, Rick?
Or something?
Yeah. But he was a nice guy. I can remember going up and talking to him. I think Rick used to talk to him more than I did. Right about here, I think, is where the Zamonics, who later became Zemanaks, had a house.
Yeah, your camera's out one.
You might the other time hear, no, that camera here, that wasn't half battery. You might hear me mention Larry and Mary sometime. That's where Larry lived. And this next house would be Leversky's. Now, when we were up here, old Mrs. Leversky lived there. And she used to go out to her back door. The deer would come right up to her back door, and she'd hand feed them corn, and she'd stand there talking to them in Russian. And then the next house is going to be what we called Kitchens, and they later corrected it to Ketchison. And I can remember I used to go over, and I'd sit there talking to old Mr. Kitchen. I think it was like a porch swing on a tree there that he'd sit in. And I used to be, we'll pause down here a second. I used to be fascinated because he smoked, but he rolled his own cigarettes. And I used to love to just sit there and watch him doing that. This house over here is where Uncle Joe and Aunt Sophie lived. That's not the exact house. I think, yep, go ahead, take whatever you want. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lived here all their married life. But this house here, they built it, Lenny thinks it was around 95. I was trying to remember. But Aunt Sophie was one of those, oh, look at that. Aunt Sophie was one of those people that if you walked in her house, she was going to feed you. She was always a good cook. I forgot to mention, well, I wouldn't be able to see it anyhow. On the other side, there was a house over there that was Eisenberg's.
I just took a picture of that.
I remember used to go, but a lot of this property up here, our grandfather used to own it. And he lost it somewhere before our time. And there was different rumors about different stories. Some people said poker game, but the most reliable version I've heard is he basically was cheated by a guy who offered him a business deal, but was really taking advantage of the fact that our grandfather didn't really speak a lot of English. And then just like coming up here, there's a little road. You can go ahead. This little road that cuts off. That's where we used to walk out to Trout Run to our swimming hole.
I didn't know you had a
Yep. I think that was probably about a half-mile walk.
half mile.
Yep.
I walked more than a mile on my hike.
And this house here, that was Nishchik's. And I remember old Mrs. Nishchik lived there. And I can remember being a kid. And she'd come over to see my mother. Now, Mrs. Nishchik understood English, but she'd only speak Russian. My mother didn't speak Russian, but she understood it pretty much just from growing up out here amongst all the hunkies. And so they used to have these conversations, and Mrs. Inishchik would be talking in Russian, going, well, jaka baka taka taka taka, that's what I was hearing. And my mother would go, oh, really? When was that? Oh, so they're going to come visit then. It's like the weirdest conversations in the world. Yeah,
We turn back around,
yeah, we're heading back towards Osceola again.
and these.
And we got some pedestrians up here.
I don't know why nobody else comes up.
Oh, they moved up the road. We're not going to get to hit them. But
What is happening?
this is, we used to walk to town all the time when we were little. We run down just for, my mother'd send us down for bread and milk. And I guess, oh, I did want to mention when I was saying about my grandfather owned a bunch of property. One of the cousins, he bought that property down where I mentioned, but it was Eisenberg's, wasn't it? He's trying to buy up more so that eventually he'll hand that down to his kids, and once again the Olenoski name will be up there on the property deeds. But coming back down into civilization now, and that was a brief shot at Penn Five. It's where I lived when we first came back. I was 4 years old, and I think we were up there for like around 5 years till we moved down into the city where we got indoor toilets and cable TV. So I hope you enjoyed that. Did you enjoy that, Toby?
Yes.
We got Toby's approval, so it's all good.
And then next video is part 2.
Yep.
The actual part 2.
Peace out.
Bye.
I said peace out, and it's not turning off.